For those of you that have heard me preach in recent weeks, you know that I have been reading the poet Rupi Kaur. And here is another of her little poems. You must want for the rest of your life to live with yourself. You must want for the rest of your life to live with yourself forever. In the first paragraph of the diocesan profile that was issued in 2006, the last bishop search, there is a sentence that has become part of our oral history. It's become part of our language. And the sentence was, "We are seeking a bishop who is willing to learn to be a bishop as we learn to be a diocese." And when I read that, because my bishop made me read the profile, I said, I could maybe do that. Maybe I could learn to be a bishop, but if they're expecting me to come in there knowing what to do, that's not going to work, because I don't know what to do. But that line has fed me for the last 12 years, and I know it's fed some of you. There's so much richness in that sentence. We're seeking a bishop that's willing to learn to be a bishop as we learn to be a diocese. And what it told me was that I could be a learner, and what it told me was that you actually believed there were a few things that you needed to learn. And tell me, it was no secret, see, in the wider church, the criticisms and the judgments that went on internally in this place and went on outside. You see, we all know what was said. But you didn't get defensive, and you didn't try to protect yourselves and say, we got this covered and we know what we're doing. But it also told me that you wanted to live with yourselves for the rest of your life. See? That there was a level of acceptance of who you are in this diocese. That you are the beloved children of God. And no matter how much conflict there was or whatever mess there was here, you knew that. And you wanted to live with yourselves for the rest of your lives. That says something powerful about the stamina of El Camino Real. And still, I marvel today at the courage, at the humility, at your ability to be trusting and faithful in that which you could not see. To hope in the unseen is the biblical definition of faith, and you had so much of that. And I know you think you were going to follow me. But I was following you. How courageous. How humbling. How trusting. How faithful. These are the essential things of the life of faith and of Christian community. And no matter how many shiny baubles now in the wider church we hear brought back to ourselves about how great we are and how far we've come, those are still the most important things. And I have been so blessed to be your bishop. It has been an honor and joy. And now you get to be their bishop. And you will witness that courage and humility and trust and faith over and over again. What a blessing. And isn't it a wonderful joy to love oneself enough and to know that God loves us so much that we want to live with ourselves for the rest of our lives? What a gift. I got to choose the readings for this evening's service because I can. And I decided I wanted to. And most of you will not have heard that Old Testament reading from the book of Numbers about the daughters of Zelophehad. Well done, Brian, on all the name pronunciation. Very good. It's a story that is not in the daily office. It's not in the Revised Common Lectionary. It intrigues me that it's been left out, actually, because it's actually such a powerful story. When Brian and I were chatting about it yesterday, he said, Bible Gateway says it's the first feminist story in the Bible. And I'm thinking to myself, did they not read the 4 chapters that come before? But okay, I'll take it. But I didn't choose it because there are women in it. I chose it because there are great leaders in it. See? And great leaders come in all shapes and sizes and gender identifications. In this case, we have 5 sisters, 5 daughters of a man named Zelophehad. Israel has been wandering in the desert for 40 years. They are settling. Inheritance laws suddenly matter because there's something, they have something to pass on. I understand from my commentaries that the legal argument constructed by the 5 sisters is an excellent legal argument. It will bless our canon lawyers in this place if they ever learn Hebrew in order to read and understand the construction, you see. But imagine the scene as the 12 tribes are taking counsel and they're seated in a circle and they're making important decisions. And the 5 sisters come in together and say, excuse me, why should our father's name die in the wilderness? And they are widows in the broadest biblical sense. They have no father, they have no brothers, and they have no husband. And they can marry outside the tribe, and the land will go to their husbands outside the tribe. It might go to another inside the tribe if they marry there. But then his name goes away. Their name goes away. And Moses says, I'll get back to you. One of the commentators that I read said, I think Moses and Zelophehad had a little struggle out there in the wilderness, maybe. But Moses goes to God and says, what do we do here? God says, actually, Moses, they're right. They're right. Change the law. So they do. And it changed the inheritance rights for women forever. And I tell you this story because there's a learning community in this story, see, as we identify ourselves. There's a group of people that's willing to learn as their context shifts, as new questions arise. There is a community that actually wants to reflect God's justice in their midst and in the way they live and in the way they are the people of God. I think El Camino Real is a place like that too. See? I think we take seriously changes we need to make. I think we take seriously this idea we hear in the gospel of grace upon grace. Probably my favorite 3 words in Scripture. Grace is eternal. It never ends. It trips over itself. You get a little going, and it just keeps going. And we take on Christ in us from our second reading. Okay. Not I, but Christ in me. And maturing in the Christian life means we let that happen. And we let what we learn by grace upon grace through the power of the Spirit to change us, see, to make us something we are not. And this diocese has had the courage and the vulnerability and the trust and the hope and the faith to go with that process. 12 years ago, we had a convention. I wasn't yet a bishop. I was 10 days short of ordination. That was interesting. And we approved an entirely new set of constitution and canons at that convention. That was really interesting, too. For the 2 months from the time I landed, actually before, in El Camino Real, until the convention itself, after I'd spent hours in the office figuring out what's going on here, how do these people speak, what is the language, acronyms, we love acronyms in this diocese, let me tell you what. But after I'd get home from a long day, I'd open up my email inbox, and there would be no less than 50 emails on Constitution and Canons every night. And I can remember going, what did I get myself into? Who are these people? See? Nancy Cohen, Chris Creed, Pat Waddell, I don't know who else was on that email stream, but I just was like, my children need to eat. There's piles of laundry in my house, you see. What are we going to do here? But in hindsight and over the years, I have reflected on what a courageous act it was to actually do that. That in this interim time of unbelievable uncertainty, that you were willing to create infrastructure that would create order and space and structure that actually, in their very presence, expressed confidence that we're going to live the rest of our lives as ourselves. We are here. We're not going. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to write this down on paper. We're going to live into this. And don't quote me, but Constitution and canons are a gift. They drive us crazy. Chris is just waving his hand up there. Yes, indeed. You will hear his report tomorrow. See. And every convention, we've shifted those Constitution and canons. We've said, actually, this isn't quite right. See, let's tweak that. Let's change it. Let's reflect more in these Constitution and canons what we experience as the beloved community of Christ. Let's work with this. There'll be some tomorrow. There's an expression of confidence there. And to have that infrastructure means that we can have wild creativity, because it has a place to be at home. Wild creativity needs a home. It's great to wander in the wilderness, but settling, it's a different charism. It's a different energy. And wild creativity can be there. Grace upon grace trips over itself. Creative energy, it moves. And it needs form and formation. We've put a lot of work into these 12 years in all kinds of ways and on all kinds of levels. In the last several months, I've started to watch how grace upon grace is tripping over itself, how the mind of Christ is continuing to settle into this place in a deeper and deeper way. And we have created in our structure the idea of partnerships between local congregational ministry, local outreach ministries, and the diocese, and the wider church, and community partners. See, that's infrastructure. See? And we've said, let's trust the infrastructure. It takes a little longer, see, for the wild creativity to get moving, for grace upon grace to trip, you see, to move a little faster. But I'm here to tell you, it is moving. Just last week, on Thursday, we were notified that 3 of our diocesan, they're diocesan ministries. They're not from the office of the diocese, you see, they're us. Were given grants by the church-wide organization. I'm looking down the list of grants and I'm thinking, did we get all 3 of the things we applied for? So Stepping Stones, which is an inmate recovery program, got, I think, $30,000. Santa Cruz Youth Ministry, 15, and San Marcos King City, which is a Latino congregation church replant, another 30. Okay, that's pretty amazing. And it's a beautiful example. You see, there aren't any other dioceses that got 3. You see, I don't know if they even applied for 3, but I'm sitting there reading. I'm gloating. I'll just take it. I'm going to go on my way out. But I'm so excited because the process of the infrastructure, it's working, see? And then on Friday, I went to a luncheon of the Bella Vista League in San Jose, who has chosen the Ministry for Homeless Students at San Jose State as one of their recipients of their fundraising event. So in 24 hours, we're over $100,000 right there, people, see? But more importantly, those ministries were all as a result of relationship building, using infrastructure and process, and just taking it and creating the space where so many more lives are impacted because there's so many more people involved. We've done a lot of work on racial reconciliation in several of our congregations. And then a whole lot of Chinese refugees show up at St. Francis in Willow Glen. Now, I've come to know that congregation, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not the likely place that I'm thinking a whole lot of Chinese, non-English speaking immigrants are going to show up. But it occurred to me, maybe even when we just do some work in one place, the grace trips over itself in other places, you see, even when the other place doesn't speak the language. That's beautiful. St. Ben's Los Osos did a Creation Care conference earlier this fall. See, they're applying for a grant. We just signed it, actually, and sent it to you. Let's try it. One more partner. See what happens there. St. George's Salinas this week. This is only, I'm just telling you, within the week, okay, other than St. Francis. That's been going on a little while. But St. George's keeps looking at its parish hall and the school across the street and saying, what can we do? So they've opened it up on Wednesday afternoon, and 4 weeks ago, about 30 kids show up to charge their phones, go to the bathroom. Sometimes kids don't feel safe going to the restroom in public high school. And then the next week, it was 60 kids. And then last week, it was 91. Now there's another partnership going on there. The infrastructure that we have prayed over, that we have taken care of, to think about, to theologically form, to put into place in formal and informal ways. It's housing grace upon grace. See? It's housing the presence of Christ in us. And it's tripping over itself. I don't know what's going to happen next week. And I want to say that when 12 years ago, none of us knew what was going to happen. See? It's happening. And it's going to continue to happen. I guarantee you there's a story in every congregation, and the caterers want to feed us at some point, so I can't go on. But I want you to leave here tonight giving thanks for what we have done together. And the careful, prayerful, graceful way that we have done it. I give you thanks, El Camino Real. Amen.